When I talk about this very subject, this question you asked about this gap between having automated solutions, but how do we get all of this into it? I typically teach this. If you take a bad records environment, or more to the point of your readership perhaps, a bad information or data environment, and you automate it, you end up with a bad automated information environment. What a surprise. There's an axiom in records management, and that is, and it sounds silly and stupid, but one cannot manage what one does not know they own. And most organizations don't have information lifecycle. We haven't used that term in this interview. But information lifecycle says you understand what you create or acquire, you manage it through the active stage of its life, you manage it through its inactive stage, and you have an ultimate disposition phase. Whether that is a realization that one must protect it as long as possible, permanent retention, or there is a legal and useful and business value to it that expires at some point at which it can be and should be destroyed. So that's the gap. The solution, this is going to sound self-promoting, but it's true. You've got to go out and do an inventory of what you have. You've got to understand, and when I say an inventory, the last thing I'm telling anybody is that they're going to go out and look page by page at every document. That's foolhardy. But understanding what elements you have that make up your information environment. What are the typical types of records? Accounting. You have accounts payable, accounts receivable. Those are broad series, but they encompass most of what you need to know about that information. And you're going to go department by department. And you're going to get them to help you do an information inventory. Once you have that structure in place, and there are forms out there, probably the best resource you can have is arma.org, ARMA.org. That is the premier records profession in the world. And there's so many resources on there, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. But you can find forms for doing these inventories, and while you're doing the inventories as to what we have, then you can say, how do we keep it? Who's responsible? How long is it actually used? You start getting this knowledge about your information environment, then you can start making some logical, legal, business efficient decisions about it. And this is old school stuff that most IT professionals don't know about and don't want to deal with. But it's critically important. So a software has to be able to know what you have, control where it is, who has access to it. It has to be capable of suspending any disposition if there is a legal, tax, or other kind of hold. You want it to be efficient and effective when you have to do discovery. You have to have the ability to create and assign retention values. So you look for something that has that life cycle to it, that goes from inheriting the material when it's created or acquired, to controlling it during its active phase, to understanding when it needs to go to inactive. Notice everything I'm saying applies equally to whatever media type, whether it's electronic or paper. If it's electronic, you may still want to take it offline or nearline. You may want to have that kind of life cycle flow. And in the end, have the ability to get rid of it if it's legal and of no more business value. So that's what you're looking for in an application, in a solution.